Hello, hello. Stephanie Zima here. Welcome to our lunch live here, where I talk, you walk, and we are walking it free. And we are going to heal, connect, and level up our lives. That is, right? Today's responses and how you can unlock your inner strength because we have fight week. Okay, so we're going to talk about anything that is fight related this week. And when I say fight, I don't mean fight with each other, I mean fight for your life. So many of us are uh, lacking happiness, lacking time, lacking excitement, lacking positive emotions, right? We focus on all the things that we don't have. We focus on all the things that we don't know how to do. We focus on all the things that are struggle and like just this low vibe energy, right? And if you haven't been around the personal development space much, you probably think like, what is she talking about? This low vibe, things. So when you think about it, the entire universe, everyone is vibrating, right? And everything is mood and yeah, it's vibrations, right? It's vibrations. So sometimes, for everybody who's not in that realm, I want to explain this in a little bit so you don't think like, oh, this woman is like kind of crazy. I don't know what she's talking about. Now, have you ever sat next to a person in an event or at a bus or at a restaurant and you just kind of felt, oh, like really heavy emotion, right? Have you ever felt that way? If you have, it's probably that their vibration, their body vibration, is vibrating on a different frequency than your own vibration. Now, have you, on the flip side, always thought when there's somebody who has excitement in them and they have energy like we describe them as being charismatic and just magnetic, right? When you have somebody like that, they are very, very magnetic. That's because they are vibrating on a higher level. Okay, so what does it have to do with finding your inner strength? I'm going to tell you. When the goal, obviously, for every person who wants to get happier and who wants to like get more from life, living more clear, more, just wants more, right? The goal is to increase your vibrancy, your energetic frequency. If you are not doing that, you are attracting, it's called the law of attraction, you are attracting all the negativity, all the low vibration things, the low vibration people, the haters, the complainers, the blamers, like all of that. You're going to attract this, right? And if you, however, being able to flip your energy, you are going to attract also the more positive things in life, right? And whether or not that is in your business or it's in your life and your relationships with friends, with, partners, whatever it is, that's what it is. Okay, now how do we do that? How do we attract people and things? We have to first take a really good look at ourselves. And you guys, if you have listened to me for some time, hang on one second. If you have listened to me for some time, I've been educating more on taking responsibility for self. Okay, that has been my biggest breakthrough in all these last 6 years that I've been devoting myself to personal development. It's been the fact that I have learned how to take responsibility for myself, for my emotions, for my habits, for the lack of my habits, for relationships and people, for the lack of boundaries, all the things that have been going on. But before you can do that, okay, I want to talk about something that's called the fight, flight, and freeze responses. Yesterday we talked a little bit about trauma. And when you've had trauma in your life, even if you are not aware of the trauma, because sometimes you're not aware that you look back and you think to yourself like everything was good. I love my parents like were great, I have a good job. Somehow I'm still not happy, right? I'm not happy with my kids, or I'm not happy with this, or something. There's something that is missing in your life, and you can't really put your finger on it. You have to start by watching what is it that you're doing, what is happening in your life. Now, I want to talk and start with the fight response. The fight response shows up with anger outbursts, controlling, the bullies, right? The ones who are trying to push things through, narcissistic, and explosive behaviors, for example. If you find yourself in your day-to-day constantly flying off the handle, constantly being angry, having road rage, being just angry at the world and your life situation, chances are you have a fight response. Okay, and becoming aware, like you will see what it has to do with the vibration that I was talking about. But you have to become aware of what is going on in your brain before you can make a change. And this is where people are not making the connection. Everybody wants to look for those hacks, those fast, like, how can I do this, how can I do that? But you have to get to the root of the problem. You have to figure out what is happening before any of this stuff happens, to be able to create a long-lasting change. Okay, so bear with me. Fight response: anger outbursts, controlling, bullying, narcissistic behaviors, explosive behaviors. If that's you, I want you to take a little note to yourself. Fight response. The fawn responses are people pleasing, lack of identity, no boundaries, overwhelmed, and codependent behaviors. If that's you, you have a fawn response. Take a little note, write that down. Okay, if you are a workaholic, someone who's overthinking, dealing with anxiety attacks, panic, OCD, you have difficulty sitting still, or you're dealing with perfectionism, you probably have a flight response to trauma. Okay, and your freeze response would be when you have difficulty making decisions, you're feeling stuck in your business, in your life, you're just feeling stuck and you don't know how to get out. It's a freeze response to trauma, you guys. Dissociation is also a freeze response, but that's usually for like really bad trauma, like, or deeper trauma, right? And when you isolate yourself, social anxiety, for example. Social anxiety when, coming out of COVID, we are sitting here and thinking like, oh, we are not wanting to get out there. It's a freeze response. Okay. Hi, Christy. Freezing response. So we have to get to know yourselves. You have to figure out, am I a fighter, am I a fawn, am I a flighter, or am I a freezer? Okay. The reason why that is important is you have to be aware of what the situations are. Then you're going to take a look at, when are you deploying these behaviors, right? What is happening in your life that you are deploying these situations? And when you do that, you will start seeing the patterns. You will start seeing, oh, every time this happens, this is how I react. Every time this happens, this is how I react. And what I want you to do is I want you to step back for a second from blaming the government, blaming your parents, blaming the school system, your husband. Step back from blaming whoever you are blaming for your situation, and go like this and just kind of like point the fingers at yourself, right? Remember, when you point at others, there's always 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers pointing back at you. And that's the reason why you need to understand that you need to look at yourself. Okay, that's who you can change. See, we can't change relationships, we can't change other people, but we can change ourselves. And bear with me, my brand is all walk it free, right? If you change yourself, you are going to change how you react to others, and therefore you change your life. It will set you free. Taking responsibility for your own actions, your own beliefs, your own self will actually give you freedom. And that's what you're looking for. You want to be set free. You want to look for freedom, right? Okay, so having said that, you take a look at it. What is my response? When am I responding like that? When am I responding like that? What is happening? When you identify these pivotal points, okay, these pivotal points, when you identify them, you can figure out then and sit with this for a minute. Remember, process your emotions. Process your emotions. Why do I feel this way? What is really going on for me here right now? Why am I acting this way? Why am I having these outbursts? I'm going to give you right here an example from my own journey. Back then, I was working in logistics and transportation, and yes, I'm a people pleaser, so I was also looking for outside validation a lot. And at that time, I was working and working and working and working so hard, pleasing my bosses, trying to make everybody happy in and outside and, all over the place. I was exhausting myself. I was actually a blend between like my codependency from my trauma was I was people pleasing. I had a lack of identity. Actually, I didn't even know who I was. I was just literally trying to please everybody, and with that I was hoping to get validation that I was good enough. I was hoping to fuel my own insecurity at that time, right? So then I was a workaholic. I was never overthinking, and I was never, but I was a workaholic, but not because I was fleeing from something. I was a workaholic because I was looking for outside validation, right? I was looking for outside validation. Now, because of this fawn response, and mind you, this fawn response that I was exhibiting was something that I was trained to do, trained in my paradigm in my early childhood. I was trained to behave that way because that was the acceptable way to behave in my home, right? I was supposed to be blending in. I was supposed to be people pleasing. I was supposed to be, having no boundaries. That was a trained childhood response. But it would show up in my natural brain response with anger outbursts. I would, every single time I would feel overwhelmed or I would feel like this, I would burst out in anger. And after that, I would be feeling horribly guilty, guys, horribly guilty for myself, thinking, why did I yell at my children? This is not me. This is not who I am. Why am I showing up in this way? Why is nobody liking me? I am such a nice person. In my office back then, I was like, I am such a compassionate, kind, empathic person. Why are people reacting to me this way, right? I was feeling confused. I was completely confused over the reaction from people to me, because my personal belief about myself at that time was distorted by the action I was trained in. Okay, now you need to identify that, because when I realized that I was acting angry all the time, I realized that was my stress trauma response to the trauma of the fawn behavior. I hope that makes sense, you guys. Send me messages if you have questions on what I'm teaching or what I'm talking about. Please have a conversation with me. Talk to me, let me know. I would love to educate more. I would love to explain more and stuff, because this is really important. There's so many hurting people out there, and I want to make sure that I give you some tips and tricks of what has helped me in the past to overcome some of that pain. Okay, so when I realized that this fawn behavior was actually the trigger to my anger outbursts, that then would leave me feeling horribly in emotional pain. I was feeling so guilty about it, right? And mom guilt, you moms out there, you know this mom guilt. You know when there's like when you're overworking in your job, or when you are, yelling at your children, or when you're exhausted at night at bedtime. These things you may not think that it has something to do with personal development, but it all does. Okay, my fawn behavior that was trained from my inner child, from my childhood on, that fawn behavior was not congruent with who I am as a person. I am not a fawn. I am not a people pleaser. I am a very confident, very strong, independent fighter for people kind of person. I am a protector of the weak. I am somebody who loves to stand out there and talks about things that help others. Okay? So my fawn behavior was just protecting trauma wounds that weren't healed. And my brain knew that, and my body knew that, and it showed up in anger. Okay? So finding your confidence and finding your strength is looking at those triggers, looking at who are you as a person versus how are you behaving and acting. Okay? Once you start realizing, okay, people pleasing, no boundaries is something that was taught because it was convenient for others in my life for me to act this way, but it wasn't who I was. Okay? I don't like to people please. I like to serve. I like to help people. I don't like to please people just because people are there, because people suck too sometimes. Okay? I like to set boundaries. I like to be able to set boundaries. I grew up always having to welcome everybody and always having to like everybody. And while that is my nature of always being there are people who generally suck. Okay, they suck and they're not nice. And you know what? You have to have the power to be able to say, no, I do not like you and I do not want you in my boundary. Hey, this is, by the way, my friend Catherine just joined my live, and, she is my kindergarten friend and I love her very much. Love you very much. Yes, I've been friends with her since kindergarten and she's the best. She's expecting a baby and I'm so excited for you. Okay, so long story short, I digress. So I wanted to go back. So this fight, flight, and freeze responses, right? Those are super, super important. You have to know them. You have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to them, because if you are not paying attention to them, you are not going to identify where your incongruence in your life is. Okay, and if your goal is freedom, if your goal is happiness, if your goal is peace, right? Whether or not it's in business, in private, in relationships, it doesn't matter. If that is your goal, if you want to be significant for your family, if you want to be loved and happy and all the things, you have to heal what's broken. You have to heal what's causing trauma in your life. You have to heal what is keeping you unbalanced. Okay? And if you are having trauma in your life, and some of you may not even know that you have trauma, some of you think everything was fine. Okay, and I want to tell you a little bit about attachment wounds. It's something I've learned a lot too. Attachment wounds, like in the trauma for little children, can already come from that point. If the mother, for example, is so busy, she can be the best mother in the whole world, but if the mother is very busy and not making eye contact with the baby sitting in the pack and play, okay, and she's just in her head like trying to figure out, okay, what am I having to do, what is it that I have to do, and that baby is sitting there and that baby is kind of just watching, playing, doing this and watching the mom, but the mom is not making eye contact, not connecting. That baby will have the feeling, I am not, or I'm invisible. right? And sometimes the babies are going to make noise and trying to get the attention and stuff like that. And depending on what their makeup is and their genetic makeup is, they will have and form a belief. And this is not something you can avoid. I mean, this is just fact. This is science. This is what happens. The children will come and form a belief in their own paradigm about themselves, right? And when you somehow think that you don't have trauma, you may have trauma that you're not even aware of, right? It can come as simple as that. The mom has just been busy, single moms, whatever, moms in relationships. No one will ever be perfect. And by the way, if you are a mom or going to be mom, just don't worry, you're going to scar your children. That's just going to be, right? But because we know how to fix a paradigm, it's okay, because they can also find their identity and realizing. And the more love you are pouring in and the more healing you do on yourself, and even if it's later, right? Even if it's later in life, even if you have messed up. I have messed up so badly with my children in the beginning, okay? And they still love me, and I still talk to them, and I still tell them, like, hey, mommy's made mistakes. Okay, mom's made mistakes. I used to be people pleasing, and this is what I taught you. And now I know better, and now I realize boundaries are important. Okay, because when you don't set the boundaries, so remember I talked about the the fight response. So I was fighting because I was triggering a fawn that was put in trained onto me. Okay, and that hurt. That hurt. So I was reacting with the fight response all the time. It was exhausting too. Friends, it was exhausting. I love peace. I love peace. I love happiness. I love nature. I love birds. I love walking. I love peace. Okay? But why was I always fighting? I was fighting so bad. It was exhausting, stressful. All the things caused my body to overeat. It caused my body to hold on to things. It was just not good. It was not good, right? Now, the order to fix that then is to become aware of what you like. Okay, I told my kids I was not setting boundaries and I needed to. So I like boundaries. I like to know this is my space and do not come in until I invite you. Okay, I also know that I love people, but I need my space to retreat. I need places to just be me. I need time to just have my headphones on and walk in nature. I need those things. So even if I don't get those things, I'm asking for them now. I never used to ask for them now, but I ask for them now. Why? Because when I set the boundaries, when I don't people please because they want it, because I serve generally and joyfully, then I don't react so stressed, okay? And I don't act out of congruence, and I can act in peace with me. And to bring this back to what I started out with the energetic, charismatic energy that you need to bring, the vibration. When you take care of yourself, when you take the responsibility for yourself, you are going to be able to raise your vibration because you're more in alliance and congruence with yourself. When you feel like you're a peaceful person, when you feel like you're a joyful person, that's who you should be all the time. And if you are not showing up like that all the time, there is one of those fight trauma responses, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response at play. Okay, and your brain is just going to keep going that. So find your inner strength in taking responsibility for your actions. Take a look as to where you are off. Find who you should be and wanting to be originally, right? Catherine, I think, as a child, I was probably always joyful. I was also adventurous. We've done some fun stuff together. Yeah, we were always adventurous, right? So you have to remember who were you as a child, and that's who you need. Chances are that was your authentic self. Okay, that is who you need to go back to. This is, even in your adult life, this is who you need to go back to, right? The moment I did this friends. Okay, I'm just gonna share that. Catherine is sparking that in me right now. But I was an adventurer as a child, so now when I start going on my camping trips, guys, that's where I start adventuring again, and it feels good. And it feels good. And the more you bring in that good energy, the things that make you feel good, and you allow yourself that, the higher your vibration gets, the stronger you get, the funner you get, the more peace you get, the more happiness you're going to have in your life, and the more joyful you are to be around, right? It builds your confidence. All right, I think this was all I wanted to share today. Mwah! Any questions? Drop it in the comments or let me know. Talk to you all later.